Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. He was assassinated on Wednesday, September 10th, in Utah Valley University. And I'm wearing the Liberty University hat. It's a university in Virginia. It's the most Christian school in the world, I believe. For all the talk that Charlie Kirk had, against university and college education, he did receive an honorary degree from Liberty University. He received a Doctor of Humanities degree from the school. His wife, Erica, also actually studied at Liberty University. And the reason I have this hat is because my cousin is a student at Liberty University. She's in her 4th year now. And Charlie Kirk was actually scheduled to attend Liberty for a speaking event on October 24th. In this video, I just want to share my thoughts on the assassination and my condolences also to the Kirk family, his wife Erica, and his 2 young kids. Charlie Kirk was an American hero. And I guess I should kind of lay down my bias at the start of the video just so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. I definitely lean more conservative in my values and beliefs in politics for the most part. Not entirely, but for the most part. However, I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan. I wouldn't have considered myself a fan of his. For one reason or another, I think that the main thing for me was that I'm very skeptical of people who, receive big funding, and Charlie Kirk was, funded, whether he personally was funded or his organization Turning Point USA, and this killing has kind of opened my eyes to the fact that just because you're funded doesn't mean that you've sold out, and I don't buy the fact that this was a lone gunman, that this was just some crazy kid, whether he's liberal or conservative or an extremist of some sort that just went out and shot Charlie Kirk. I don't know. That seems a little bit naive to believe, honestly. I see people posting on their stories about gun violence. This was a political assassination. Talking about gun violence, I think, is kind of ridiculous and a little bit naive. So it was Wednesday afternoon that all of this unfolded. I was at work and I actually got the text from my cousin Alex. She was on the podcast, episodes 17 and 66. If you want to watch either of her episodes, she talks about Liberty University in depth in both of those episodes. And it's a great school. And sometimes I like repping this hat more than the U of T hat, just because the values and the principles that school stands for are probably a little bit more solid than the ones at U of T, but nevertheless. Alex texts me around, I think it was 3:18 p.m. was the exact time. It was right near the end of my work shift. Obviously, she broke the news saying Charlie Kirk was shot today. Did you see? It's quite a bold claim to make, so I instantly believe it. Very intense situation. And that day, that entire day, I was not able to get Irina Zarutska out of my mind. This was the woman, rest in peace as well to Irina Zarutska. This was the Ukrainian woman who was stabbed on the bus just days before the Charlie Kirk assassination. Horrific videos in both cases, really. Can't get that imagery out of my mind. And at the end of the day, it just comes with a second blow. Charlie Kirk was shot. There was about, I think, a 2-hour window-ish where there was no confirmation of whether he was dead or alive. People were sending their prayers. People were asking for prayers. Pray for Charlie Kirk. And I was checking all this on Twitter. I don't use Twitter for anything other than important breaking news like this. If I had to pick one social media app to keep, it would probably be Instagram. But when it comes to news, obviously, Twitter is the place to be. I checked Twitter, And, after Alex texts me, first thing I open it up, first thing is that close-up video, uncensored, incredibly graphic, insanely graphic, the kind of thing that you'd only really see on, some of these darker forums that are real sketchy. You can fish this stuff out if you actually, there are people out there who, for one reason or another, watch some of these graphic videos of people getting killed and whatnot. This one was mainstream though. You didn't really have to go too far. You open up the Twitter app, and I think since, all of the craze has cooled down over these last few days, that stuff has been taken down. I don't think that it's supposed to be up there, but because it's such a viral clip, I'm sure that, the X algorithm had a tough time taking it all down. Anyways, lots of people saw it. Horrifying video for sure. And it's real. It's real. Some people I know thought that it might have been AI, but I saw that and I knew it was real. I knew it was serious. And unfortunately, I regret saying this at the time, but I did say that there's no way he survives that. And instantly when I said that, I regretted it, because, he might still be alive. You want to pray for him. Never, wish death on another person, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. And we're going to get into these people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, which is evil to its core. The 2-hour window of whether we're not sure if Charlie's alive or not, I'm on my drive home from work. I'm driving with my friend, my buddy, and constantly kind of refreshing any chance that we can to kind of see what's going on. I'm texting 4 or 5 different people as this is happening, kind of breaking news. And yeah, it turns out that Charlie died. Charlie passed away. And it's so strange how this affected so many people. That's something that I just have been trying to wrap my head around. Like I said at the start of the video, I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan. To say that would be a lie. I respected him for encouraging debate. You have to understand, I'm in a very similar field. I consider myself in a similar field as this man. Obviously, he's the head of the pack. He's the industry standard. Maybe not the industry standard, the industry leader, I should say. And I'm just getting my feet wet, just getting started in this, only about 2.5 years in. So part of me can relate to his ambition, right? And there's a sense of relatedness, relatability to this whole situation. Obviously, my parents' first thoughts were some worry and some anxiety for me, because when controversial stuff happens with VOV, I should say definitely more so my mom's worry a little bit more in that way, but they get stressed that some crazy person might decide to do something vicious or violent, as we saw happen, as we saw transpire on Wednesday. But I think it's worth it nonetheless. This was a tough thing to say, but I said this on Wednesday, the day he was killed. Charlie died a hero's death. And it's hard to see that right away, but it's almost one of the best ways to go out. Fighting for what you believe in, not backing down, not stepping out of the fight because you can't handle the heat, because the temperature gets too high, because the pressure is too intense. He pushed along, he pushed forward, and I'm sure he was aware of the dangers of doing this. But you can't sell out. You can't sell out. And I've been on a bit of a religious journey. Don't like the word, but I've been on a bit of a religious few months. I've been trying to get closer to Christ. And if something pushed me super far, when I say super far, I mean super far along that line, something's pushed me much closer to Christ, it's this assassination. I think what makes it so dark is the fact that of all the people in the conservative space, I'd argue Charlie was one of the most respectful. He wasn't provocative like an Andrew Tate or a Nick Fuentes, and not to say that if those two men were killed, it also wouldn't be a devastation. But Charlie Kirk, he spoke truth. He, as he says, God is 100% truth and 100% grace. And that's a hard tension to have, and that's a tension that I have plenty doing the podcast, because I never was able to put it into words like that. When I heard that for the first time, it made perfect sense. 100% truth and 100% grace, and that's love, and it's knowing that we're all living life for the first time. It's cliche, but we're all living life for the first time, and people make mistakes, and people can get things wrong, and perhaps they had a rough start in life, or they had bad things happen to them which have tainted their optimism on the world. But grace without truth is also harmful. To have one but not the other, I wouldn't consider true love. Just affirming everything someone does, especially when those things can be destructive or are destructive to them, I don't consider love. You think of a mother's love, it's unconditional, ideally. When you try to dissect a mother's love, you see that you can fall down as many times as you do, and she'll still be there for you. But she'll also call you out when you're going down a bad path. And I think that's very similar to Charlie's style of messaging. So it was just so evil. Out of all the guys to get, I saw someone tweet that Charlie Kirk was the Ned Flanders of the conservative movement, which I thought was a great way to put it. He was just so kind to the people he debated. These cowards celebrating Charlie Kirk's death truly are in the clutch of the devil. And I don't even say that loosely. It's true. And I've been talking with family the last few days, and I've been asking them, before I go on this rant, is there any case at all where I would find myself celebrating someone else's death? Any case. This man, what he did was speak words. You could even take the ugliest case. I'm trying to even think of a person in my life who has caused so much damage that I would even think to celebrate that person's death. And I'm telling you, I can't even think of one. And I'm saying that with absolute honesty. So I genuinely encourage conservatives who feel the same way I do and think that celebrating a man's death, especially a man like Charlie Kirk, who is simply debating other people and inviting them to a microphone, I would encourage them, think to yourself, before you get too judgmental, would you find yourself in a situation where a liberal figure was assassinated and you're celebrating? Would you be celebrating if Dean Withers got shot in the neck? It's a serious question. You got to ask yourself that, because this is a Solzhenitsyn quote. I don't exactly remember word for word, but the line between good and evil is not along the border of two countries. It's split straight through the center of your soul. That's where good and evil is. So before you get too riled up, I'd seriously sit there and think, what sort of scenario might transpire in the future where now I'm on the other side of this? Could there be something that happens where my instinct emotion is to celebrate someone's death. We're commanded to love our enemies. That's how far it goes. As I said, I've been getting a bit more into the Bible, and I heard a speaker the other day say that it's easy to love Jesus. Loving Jesus is one thing, but we're commanded to love Judas as well. The snake, the traitor, who exhibits almost every single trait of the devil, we're commanded to love that person as well, which is hard. It's not really clear how we should approach that, and most of the times we're not going to want to. I'll give my 2 cents on what you might say or how you might be able to speak light into some of these people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Because I've seen posts of people saying there's no reasoning with these people. This isn't a partisan issue. This isn't a conservative versus liberal issue. This is good and evil. I commend all the liberals and all the people who disliked Charlie Kirk or disagree with Charlie Kirk, who came out and disavowed the demonic celebration of his death. Dean Withers did that. Dean Withers, I watched this guy on Jubilee a few months back, and I immediately, this guy, once again, super vocal, super loud, liberal, but I respect the guy, and I said this back then. It's not on video anywhere, but just from watching that thing, it's like, this guy's smart. This guy obviously is well-read, and I'd say he's intellectually honest, which was interesting to me because I don't really tend to feel that way about most woke people or your hardcore leftists, but this guy impressed me, and I think I was proven right when you see his reaction on Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's a human reaction. There's a difference between leftists who argue from a point of humanity versus the ones who are completely encapsulated by darkness. So someone like Dean Withers, someone who is in the light, I would say in the light of God, in the light of Christ, you can reason with these people. You can debate with these people. Yes, they're liberal. Maybe they're woke. Woke's a bit more of a negative term, but they might be, liberal or leftist. These are the people who can get into an arena and have a logical debate on facts, on science, on religion, whatever it may be. These are people you can reason with, but I've seen people saying there's no more reasoning with these people. And by these people, I mean the ones celebrating Kirk's death. And I partially agree, but let me try to take this apart a bit, because just to give you my resume, if you don't know who I am, I've hosted 110 podcast episodes with 99 different guests at the University of Toronto as a mostly conservative student. So you can understand how that might go. You're not going to agree with everyone you speak to. How do you reason with the unreasonable? How do you reason with a person who is completely encapsulated by evil and darkness? It's different. There are liberals who are in the light, they're intellectually honest, and you can have a logical discussion with them and exchange facts and go back and forth. Same with conservatives. There are some conservatives that are that way too. There are some liberals and some conservatives who are in complete darkness. You can't reason with these people. You can't have an intellectually honest conversation because they are in the clutch. I need you to try to visualize that. Maybe you're not religious, but they are in the clutch of Satan. They're in the clutches of evil, of darkness. So the reason people are saying you can't reason with these people anymore is because you need to first bring them into the light. You need to slay the demons or the monsters that are holding them back from having a normal discussion, from having a conversation about facts, about logic, not purely in the context of whatever demons or whatever sin has grabbed them and put them in a chokehold almost. This has happened. I'm telling you, this is a conversation style that I've developed, a debate style I've developed, if you want to put it that way. When I'm talking to someone on a podcast and I can start to tell that I'm not going to be able to have a logical exchange with this person because clearly something is clouding their minds. When you're talking to someone and they're clearly making no sense, you give them arguments and they reply with bullshit. They don't reply with logic, but clearly you can tell that something in them is riled up and they're emotional. I think it's our job to try to acknowledge that emotion or that evil that some people have sitting inside them. You have to, the only way I can think of saying it is you have to slay the monster. It's just about acknowledging that, and that it's that kind of light that casts those demons away in a conversation. People can let their guard down and have a normal conversation with you because they feel like you're on the same page. You're both starting from the same point. I got to find a way to communicate that a little bit better, but I hope that kind of makes sense to kind of clear up the argument that you can't reason with these people. You can, but you really you have to acknowledge their darkness first. If someone's got their guard up, you gotta slay the demon that's behind them so that they can put that guard down. They're currently trapped. People that are celebrating another man's death, an innocent man celebrating his death, clearly have some darkness that is that's clouding over their minds. So those are my 2 cents. Hopefully my camera is good for the next video. I'm recording on my iPhone. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. For a brief moment there, you kind of get a little bit concerned about the consequences of speaking your mind, sharing your thoughts. But I'm happy to know that even at the peak, even at the height of the craze and of the tragedy of the assassination last Wednesday, I still recognize it's important to not back down, to continue speaking truth, speaking light into this world. And that's what Charlie Kirk did, literally until the moment he died. So for that, I consider him a hero. And God bless his soul.